All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our May VCI monthly community webinar. I'm Brian Anderson. I'm MITRE's Chief Digital Health Physician, and I have the pleasure of kicking us off on this month's webinar. Just to briefly share with you a bit about our agenda and some rules of the road. For today, I'll provide just a brief update on where we're going, where we're at. I'll then pass it off to my colleagues on the VCI steering group to provide a more detailed technology update. And then really the bulk of today's time is meant to showcase many of you, the work that our community members are doing, driving towards the ability to issue smart health card VCI credentials to individuals in our society. So we're quite excited about some of the efforts underway that will be announced and shared today on the webinar. And so we'll be spending a bit of time going through a number of our partners, sharing that with you. And then we'll close things up with Dr. John Halamka, also from our VCI steering group, and some potential next steps. I'll remind you that if you're dialed into this webinar as a participant, your microphone is not activated, but there is a feature to ask any question that you would like using the Q&A button within the webinar. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A feature there. Please take advantage of that. If you have any question that you'd like to ask, we have steering group members and fellow panelists here that are more than happy to answer any of your questions. And certainly if there's appropriate ones that we can answer live, we'll go ahead and do that as well. So please make use of that. So just to level set and recontextualize the work that we're doing here within VCI, for many of you that are new, the VCI charter is available on vci.org, but to highlight some of the key points of it around the work that we are animated around. So the first component is empowering individuals with the ability to have access to own verifiable copies of their vaccination records. This is the main effort behind the work that we're doing, whether you are an issuer, whether you are a holder, a digital wallet, or a verifier or a destination. The thing that animates us together as part of VCI is enabling individuals to be able to tell their own story with verifiable copies of their vaccination records. How do we do that? Well, many of you on the technology side are working weekly, daily with others in this community to harmonize the standards, the specifications that are being developed for the Smart Health Card framework. And so the technological description of how that payload is packaged together, how it's issued, how it can be consumed and verified or stored on a digital wallet, that also is really, when the rubber hits the road, what we are about when it comes to these credentials. And of course, then individuals then are empowered to be able to use those credentials however they choose. It is their consent, their story to tell, to use that for whatever purposes they would like. It's about enabling and empowering them and ensuring that there is a sense of equity, of openness, of flexibility, and the ability to use these credentials, be it digitally or paper-based, for free. There is no cost for individuals, or should be no cost for individuals, to have a copy of their own smart health card, their own vaccination record. That is the VCI charter. That is what we are about here. So to transition from that recontextualization to a bit of an update for you. So many of you may have seen the news in the New York Times or other news outlets around some similar efforts in the European Commission, the Digital Green Certificate, or of course with the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the Smart Vaccination Certificate Working Group, not to be confused with the smart, all capitalized, health card work that we are doing here in VCI. But nevertheless, the WHO and the European Commission have similar efforts around the specifications that would go into a digital certificate for vaccination purposes. The work that we are doing in VCI in this space is trying to align with and coordinating with these the stakeholder groups at the international level to ensure as much as possible, as much as we can, that the smart health card specification, the framework that is being developed by many of you, is it will be an alternative that will be acceptable, as an example, to European Union member states. So we are in active conversation with the European Union teams that are helping to lead the development of digital green certificates. As you might imagine, the effort is complicated and requires coordination across many of those member states. But of course, I think we are all very interested in ensuring that individuals have the ability to travel from one nation to another as easily and seamlessly as possible. So our hope is that smart health cards will be an adequate alternative, I believe is the term of art within the framework for digital green certificates, an adequate alternative for green certificates for individuals coming from, example, the United States, to be able to travel within the European Union. That work is still ongoing. Decisions haven't been made yet, but I just wanted to let you know that many of us are talking to stakeholder groups within the European Union about that. Similarly, I know that I personally have the pleasure of serving with some of you on many of the committees within the WHO on the smart vaccination certificate working group. So there's work ongoing in the harmonization process and coordination, both with the WHO and with the European Union. Obviously, much more to come on that. And certainly welcome the opportunity to coordinate with you. If you're interested, please reach out, let us know, and we'll be happy to coordinate and include you appropriately in the conversations that evolve in that space. Next up is just a brief member update. So last we talked, there were, I believe, approximately 150 to 200 organizations. This is a snapshot of what that looked like. The number now is over 650. So since we last talked, over 400 new organizations have joined. So welcome to many of you. We are so glad that you've signed up and are joining this community. It is active, it is vibrant. There is lots of work going on in this space in the technology working groups and internally by many of you reaching out in an ad hoc nature to many of your co-community members. So we're very excited to be working with you. You can see an example, some of the work that is going on at Walmart that was publicly announced with the Commons Project, with Clear. And so we're excited to see this kind of organic work happening within the community and with other organizations that may not yet formally be members of Walmart. So welcome to the over 400 other new members that we have. The other thing I wanted to mention, and you'll see this theme throughout today, the work primarily that we have been embarked on in VCI has been focused working with issuers, initially being able to issue these kinds of credentials. And so if you've seen some of our previous slides, you'll recall that these are health systems, these are pharmacies, these are payers, these are state registries. These are all institutions or organizations that have records of an actual administration of a vaccine in one's arm. And so importantly, we believed that we needed to focus a lot of our work of ensuring that issuers knew how to issue these smart health cards. Now that work has been established and it is ongoing, it is self-sustaining, and it is expanding, we are looking to pivot to begin working and supporting destinations and verifiers, so essentially the catchers or the consumers of these credentials, to ensure that they know how to make use of these credentials, so that destinations may know which verifiers they want to work with to do third-party verification of identity or business logic applied to a vaccination. If you'll recall, we have also made sure that I think it's important to recognize what VCI is about and what VCI is not about, right? Recall in previous webinars, we've described that VCI is not focused on identity management or building trust frameworks so that destinations would know who to trust. We leave that up to other organizations. Many of you in this community offer services of identity management, trust frameworks, and that is great and very helpful to the overall end-to-end solution. What we hope to do, again, is partnering with destinations and verifiers, is to enable the community both to better understand how to make use of these from a technical approach, how to consume these credentials, but also for destinations to understand who can they work with, which verifiers know how to consume these kinds of credentials, what sort of trust frameworks are there out there, how is identity proofing done, and you'll see some examples of that today. So that's where we're going. That's a little bit of an update on the members in general. And I think that's all I have. As the next slide, I'll go ahead and pass the microphone over to my colleagues on the technology side. I believe, Reese, you're up. Please tell me when you'd like me to advance the slide.
Great, thanks, Brian. Yeah, could you go to the next slide? So we've had some exciting events for folks to come and bring their implementations and test together at various Connectathons. So last month we had a Karen Connectathon, which was graciously hosted by the folks over at Cerner. And you can see a list of the participants over on the right who were able to actually come together and test out different issuer, verifier, and holder applications together. And I just wanted to let folks know that we actually are going to have another track at the HL7 Connectathon next week. And at the bottom right, you can see links to both the track pages for both of those tracks if you want to read the report out from the Karen Connectathon last month, or get a glimpse into what we're planning on doing at the HL7 Connectathon next week, which is really just trying to exercise those primary means of creating and exchanging health cards from issuers to holders, and then taking those and verifying them. And so we've really been in the mode of taking the standards that we've been actively developing and putting them through their paces with implementations at events like this and asynchronously throughout the project as well. And Brian, if you want to go to the next slide. So as many of you know, VCI is really built around two core standards. So we have the Smart Health Cards framework. That's that foundational standard that determines how we can enable individuals with verifiable copies of their health data. And then the Smart Health Cards Vaccination and Testing IG, which applies Smart Health Cards specifically to vaccinations, testing, and COVID-19. And I'll let Max Maznick give an update on the Smart Health Cards Vaccination and Testing IG, but that's for the Smart Health Cards framework. Just recently, we've tagged the 1.0.0 release candidate version for the Connectathon. Really, no major changes have been required over the past couple of weeks, which is great in terms of stability for the spec, and we've seen lots of implementations come forward. But with that, Max, do you want to give a little update on the Smart Health Cards Vaccination and Testing IG?
Yeah, thank you, Reese. Hi, everyone. So this is the part of the IG that defines the patient and the clinical data that are contained within the Smart Health Card. So the implementation guide is feature complete, and we're closing in on the first stable release. As part of the recent work, we have added support for terminology that goes outside the United States. So previously we were focused on supporting CVX for identifying vaccines, for example, and we've expanded this to include terminology like ICD-11, GS1, G10, and SNOMED. We're closing in on the final release candidate, which will become our first stable release, and we'll have the release candidate out before the Fire Connectathon that Reese just mentioned, and then the stable release will be done shortly after the Connectathon. We're also continuing to work on moving the development of the Fire IG into the HL7 standards process, and we're targeting a ballot through HL7 later this year. For any implementers who are interested in participating in the IG development, we are starting to have regular meetings on this through HL7. I'll put a contact email address in the chat if you're interested in joining those calls. And we're especially interested in getting implementers who are outside the US to look at the terminology support that we have to make sure that we are supporting everything that you need. With that, I'll pass it back to Reese.
And I think I'll pass it right over to JP to talk about VCI Issuer Directory and reference designs.
Thanks, Reese. So just very quick update on the reference design. So if you saw the webinar last time, you would have seen a nice walkthrough of what we put together. Essentially, easy designer tools to get folks started on how to render smart health cards either in your portal or on PDF documents to share, or if you have a mobile application and you'd like to render smart health cards and display them in a nice, consistent way. We have a bunch of materials that you can find on GitHub that should help get you underway. Just an update quickly on this. We've also added the original Figma reference designs as a community Figma file. So that should make things a little bit easier for folks to pick up and run with. Feedback on that is always welcome, either in the GitHub or the various Fire and Zulip chats. On the issuer directory, this is a question we're getting with increased frequency as we're seeing lots of folks getting closer and closer to actually being issuers of smart health cards in production. So, we've talked about what VC is and VCI is and what VCI is not. And one of the things that it is not is, sort of a fully blown trust framework. And we've seen presentation from Paul Meyer last time on the Common Trust Network. We've referred folks over to Good Healthpass, who are doing a lot of great work on defining how to establish trust between institutions. But VCI, we feel it's important that we minimally provide a directory of all of the VCI issuers. And the final details for what exactly are being required of VCI issuers will be worked out within the next week or so. But the requirements are pretty minimal. Essentially, you're an entity that's a known healthcare or health IT platform vendor that is known to VCI, so likely our members, that you have passed the various validator tests so that your FHIR-based data model is correct and that you're able to produce and sign smart health cards that pass the Microsoft validator test as well. And then last, we are asking for logos that can optionally be provided with a set of terms that, if you do in fact provide your logo because you'd like them to appear on folks' smart health cards when they render them, you would need to agree to. So an extremely basic attestation that we think anyone who's a VCI issuing member should be able to assert to. And then once you have filled out that attestation, effectively, the VCI directory is going to be a super high-tech JSON file hosted on our GitHub, which will be accessible to developers of applications downstream, as well as verifiers to understand, who is in fact in this VCI issuer directory. So more details on that to come. Issuers who are interested in being listed in this directory, you can feel free to get in touch, but we should be broadcasting this information within the next couple of weeks more broadly, and looking forward to getting you all added to that as folks come into production with their smart health cards. Thanks, Reese.
Great. Well, super exciting news, JP, Reese, and Max. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think just to foot stomp that for just a moment. So for issuers that are interested in understanding how to go about the validation process, this will be an exciting new opportunity and area where VCI will be looking to lean in and support destinations, verifiers, and issuers to understand, how do you conform to the specification and do so appropriately and do so in a trustworthy way. And so we'll be looking to stand up more information, just as JP said there earlier, on that. So stay tuned. But now I want to shift to really the heart of what is going to be the focus for the rest of the webinar, which is to showcase much of the work that many of you are doing. I'm incredibly excited about the 4 groups that we have showcased today. The first of which is Epic. Many of you know Epic as one of the leading electronic health record vendors in the world, and they have some exciting news to share and announce today. So I'll go ahead and stop presenting and pass the presentation over to Isaac. So Isaac, feel free to share your screen, and over to you, sir. You're on mute, Isaac.
Hey everybody, so my name's Isaac Vetter. I work at Epic on tools and standards, help developers build apps on top of Epic, and have been kind of deeply involved in the VCI effort from Epic's perspective over the course of this year, and am here to just kind of JP and asked if I was willing to kind of give an update on where we were, and then I also wanted to showcase it's kind of a recent developer guide that we published maybe the week before last, which I'm sharing on screen. So overall, we're very, very actively working on releasing support for smart health cards. And specifically, we're going to support exchanging patients accessing their smart health card in 2 different ways, as a QR code or as an export. Such that a patient can export their information into an application of their choosing on their phone. And then we're also concurrently, we'll also be releasing support for a health system or a provider to print a smart health card, a representation of the smart health card as a QR code on a piece of paper to ensure that we can enable patients without technology to be able to access their smart health card immunization or lab result data. So overall, we kind of think that that's a critically important piece, generally making sure that paper works. And I think that the smart health card specification has done a really nice job of ensuring that paper-based representations of this data are on an equal footing with app and digital-based representations. And so we really want to, we also want to ensure, so that's kind of our plans and our upcoming support. That's generally those three categories are how it will work. Kind of thinking about the rest of the ecosystem, it also seems important that verifiers be able to accept and read those QR codes that are printed on paper that do follow this standard that we've created. And so one of our goals is to help developers to try to make it easier, make it possible and easier for them to consume Epic generated smart health card QR codes, as well as files exported, in between apps. So to that end, I think maybe just last week, published this developer-facing guide to vaccination credentials and specifically the smart health card standard. It's first iteration of it. And so we'll definitely see additional updates. And even the MITRE team, helpfully did some early review and identified a few issues that we're in progress of fixing. So kind of shout out to Neelima specifically there. This content is accessible both through our App Orchard developer program, but also publicly on fire.epic.com at the URL I'm at right now. Overall, it's awfully similar to some of the excellent materials that have been created by others, notably the MITRE written Jupyter notebook. So if you're a developer looking to better understand, the smart health card specification and the FHIR profiles, I think a great resource is that smart health card Jupyter tutorial. What's different about this page and this content is that it kind of calls out and describes a few Epic specific considerations, behaviors, as well as recommendations. And I think that content and those call outs will naturally grow over time as we get more implementer feedback. For example, we're as the HL7 FHIR Connectathon next week, we'll be participating in that and sharing our QR codes and smart health card files to look for opportunities for improvement on both the verifier side and on the issuer side. Expect this content to change. And if you find it helpful and if you find things that you think are wrong, please do definitely reach out. open@epic.com or Isaac@epic.com is our two email addresses that both will work for you. All right, and I'm not going to actually walk through the whole document because it's just kind of a specific explanation of the smart health card specification, but please do put any kind of questions you have in the chat.
Great. Well, Isaac, thank you so much for sharing that with us. In case, for those of you that might have missed this, but the fact that a major EHR vendor like Epic is helping to lead the way in supporting the issuance of these credentials is incredibly exciting and evidence of the real work that is just fantastic coming out of Epic in the interoperable FHIR space, Isaac. So thank you for that. And I'm sure that there will be many health systems that are on this call today that will be very excited to hear more about where you're going in this, and following up with you and your development teams on how they can take advantage of this as health systems or pharmacies or customers of yours, essentially, to make use of this. So thank you so much on behalf of the VCI community for leading in this way, Isaac.
Thank you, Brian.
So next up, we have another very exciting announcement and partner here, Invoke, which works closely with the state of Louisiana as their trusted vendor, has some exciting news to share for us from the state of Louisiana. So Calvin, over to you, sir.
Great, thanks for having me today, and thanks for letting us participate in this. This is pretty amazing stuff for us. I'm broadcasting to you from the South in the Silicon Bayou of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We're a small software company, which I founded a few years ago, and we just love technology. We love working with the state of Louisiana. We have a saying, we satisfy the person before we satisfy the requirements. So we got the opportunity to get involved with the digital driver's license program in Louisiana. And we launched LA Wallet. This is the first legal digital driver's license launched in the United States. It was launched by accident on June 26th, 2018 by the bill's sponsor. He sent it out to all of his Instagram when we were doing a soft launch. But needless to say, we all got in the same room, the Louisiana State Police, the Alcohol and Tobacco, the General Counsel, the Department of Public Safety, to all talk through how we were going to do that. We learned a lot of things early on. We failed early. The state police said, I will never touch their phone. Well, that worked itself out very well with the COVID hands-off policy. It's now part of state police's training and alcohol tobacco control training of how to accept and recognize the legal digital driver's license. Now you can find it in the App Store and Google Play Store. It is available for free today, and I like to do the risky demos. We're going to go right into the app and show you its operation. But this is our behind the scenes dashboard. Today we have 677,000 citizens that have successfully activated their current driver's license or ID or learner's permit across 1.2 million devices in Louisiana. So it is very well proliferated here. Now, after we got LA Wallet running, we had some issues with the places not accepting it. Well, there was a law passed that says we just made this equivalent to the plastic credential. Now, this is important on the identity side because we're going to use that physical credential authority to be able to look up our immunization record. So let me switch to another page here. Now, we also have, if you're familiar with an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or some of these delivery companies, in Louisiana, we have some strict laws about delivering alcohol to someone's house, which of course got very big during the COVID pandemic. So businesses can sign up to use the verification feature of LA Wallet. And I'll just log into LA Wallet on the right side. Now we can present our digital identity to someone, and we can pick which fields we want to share with that person. Now, someone else with LA Wallet, either the citizen version, which is free, or the paid commercial version, which has a small monthly fee, can scan either digital driver's licenses, or it can even scan plastic driver's licenses. So this is my plastic driver's license, and I just scanned the QR code on the back of my driver's license, and that will go off to the DMV and actually pull the photo and the status of my driver's license. Of course, I had to do this on the QA version of the app. So let me pull it down on production. So this will scan and go off to the DMV based on that QR code, and will pull back my photo and the status of the driver's license. It will also log it to the alcohol tobacco control portal, whereby the alcohol tobacco control can know that they did not deliver this alcohol into a dry county, and they did not deliver it to a university, which is illegal. So you can see it pulled back my photo there, and the fact that I'm not suspended, I'm over 21, and that's my full name. So now that we've got the information here, what we did, the governor said, we'd like to be able to verify people remotely. So we innovated a way to give people affected by the hurricanes that we have a way to verify their identity remotely. So they can use the remote verify you piece, whereby they can put in a remote code here, and this will actually let them send their identity, always on the citizen's request, back to a verifying authority. Now we use that, if we have time, I'll give you a demo of that. We also use it for doing video court online in Louisiana, which is very interesting. But most recently, our governor wished to have the individual's COVID vaccine verification on LA Wallet. Now, the reason for that is there's a lot of fraud in Louisiana with people printing out vaccination cards. So we implemented these 4 principles. It's purely optional. This is not mandated across Louisiana citizens at all. There's nothing extra, meaning we don't take anything down to the device except what is necessary to prove COVID vaccination status. There are no copies. That means that the data only lives at the Louisiana Department of Health, or it lives on your device, nowhere else, no other servers. And then single use. It's only used when the citizen displays their COVID vaccination status. So this is our roadmap right here. So our LA Wallet, the week of May the 3rd, we went live with the digital version of your vaccination paper. So the way that that works is on the right side, you'll see my device, there's a COVID-19 button. Now here we are tied directly to the Louisiana Department of Health. And since I'm already logged in authoritatively with my digital credential, I've already biometrically approved who I am, I can now read my disclaimer, learn about the LA Wallet and how it's being used, but I can click one button here. Now that one button sent my first name, last name, date of birth, and zip code directly to the Louisiana Department of Health securely, and it found my vaccination record. Now, it may need a requery. It may have to say, wait a minute, I got 2 matches here. I need some more information, in which case we'll send the full legal address of the person. If it whittles down to 1 and exactly 1 match, it will say, good news, your vaccination status is available and will be displayed. Would you like to enable this? Again, purely optional. If I say yes, I get the smart health card, and anybody with a validator, if you'd like to test that against 1.0.0 RC, you're welcome to scan that. Now, the way this happened is a signed JWS just pushed that down to my device. I rendered it as a QR code, but I also unpacked it on my device to get that elapsed time and that effective date. Moving forward, we will be exporting to other smart card providers and other apps. So that's all the time I have, and I'll be around for questions.
Well, Calvin, that's just, again, another exceptional example of VCI community members leaning into this space, and the state of Louisiana, hats off to you and Invoke and the governor's office to making this all possible. I hope that if we have representatives from state immunization information systems, that they consider reaching out to you and their colleagues within Louisiana to explore this more. I know that there are certainly states that we've spoken to, that I've spoken to, that have expressed interest in understanding how to navigate this and how to make this possible. It's really exciting to see a state and a vendor making that possible here for your residents within your state. So congratulations again for all the work that you're doing on behalf of your residents and the parishes there in Louisiana.
Thanks so much.
So with that, we'll now move on to another stakeholder demonstration. So out in the sunny state of California lies Othina. And Othina, in the early days, you may recall, partnered with Orange County and the Southern California regional departments of public health around the mass vaccination events that were taking place at Disneyland, one of my favorite places to go to as a young child, that turned into one of the quintessential vaccination sites that was vaccinating, and I think still is vaccinating, large numbers of people within the Southern California region. Well, Othina set up a process by which they could register and work with individuals in those communities to get signed up to get a vaccination. It is a great example of a vendor in our community that was working, what I'll say, left of jab with citizens, that now is exploring how to partner with those same individuals to work right of jab and offer value services in partnership with state organizations for verifiable copies of those events, of that administration of that vaccine. So at this point, I'll pass it off to Norm and your team there at Athena. So Norm, if you want to take control of the screen and present anything.
I want to actually, if Nick is on the call, I'll have him take control of the screen if he could. Nick Pethtel, who's our VP of product and one of the visionaries behind the Athena platform. With that, while we figure up, here he is. I'll kind of give a little bit more of a background, but Brian, thank you for what a great overview of Athena and our platform. Again, we are left of Jab, but we worked with the 3.2 million residents in Orange County, California, to set up a system, albeit separate than what the state of California was pushing. I think Orange County is very happy about that because our cost per vaccination is about 30% lower, and our throughput was much higher, and our second shot avoidance is only about 1%, where the rest of the nation is doing about 10%. So we've been able to keep people engaged through the process, and we hope as we move right of Jab to the same effort. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Pethtel, who can walk us through the how what we call the vaccine verifier. It's not passports. Passports are bad, apparently. So I'll turn it over to Nick.
Hi, yeah, so what we have here, I'll be quick here on these slides, is, I just want to show that, really at the center here is the residents that are in control of their pass. They choose when they want to request to receive one and who to share it with, but really the three stakeholders are, those vaccinators. How do we empower them with being able to service their individuals who they've given shots to? How can they get them an actual digital vaccination record? Our residents, how can they get a digital vaccination record? How can they get into businesses and whatnot, as well as manage their whole family? And then the third part is, how do we give businesses a tool that's a simple scanner that doesn't give them any more information than knowing if someone's valid or not to enter this area. So I'm going to go ahead and just get into the demo. Pull this up. So I'm going to do two parts. One is the first part here on our patient side of things. So Captain Hook here is logged in. He can manage his whole family as well. If we come here, I can swap to any of my family members, my daughter, my son, my grandmother. I can manage getting their smart cards, adding them all to my wallet. Let's say we were going somewhere like an event or something. I could pull all their wallets and all of their QR codes into my wallet to make it easy to enter places. But for now, I'm going to just go ahead and request my own vaccine verification card. Here, you're going to see my records. I have my round 1, my round 2. If I tapped into there, you'd see more of the details about my actual vaccination events. But here I'm going to go ahead and tap to get my own QR code. So we also have a notion here where they can request a physical card. By doing so, we get some of their contact information, and we'll actually mail them a physical card with the QR on it. So some people just don't have technology, or they want to give it to their grandma who doesn't have a phone. They can request a physical card as well. They can keep in their wallet. So just after a quick consent here, we're going to go ahead and proceed, and it's going to generate our vaccination record. So once the individual has this, they're good to use it at any kind of event or whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my phone over now to the business scanner. So again, we have another version. It's a light version of our app. One thing to think about on the patient side is that app is the same thing that they use to schedule their appointments, to get their vaccinations. It's familiar. It's what they've been using for multiple weeks now. But from here on the business side, it's just a very simple scan a person's record that's in front of you. Pulling this up, it'll allow me to go ahead and scan this card. We get very little information. Nothing is stored on either device. Everything's encrypted in the code and passed, in a peer-to-peer fashion in a way that's no data is saved either direction. So here we can see that Captain Hook had a valid pass. One thing to note is that we are giving the businesses a way to keep track of how many people have come into their business for the day. So here we can see that, at the fireworks show, I've verified 4 out of my 5 total scans today. If we pop this open, I only have 1 scanner, but we could see the aggregate of all the scanners who are entering there. We can keep track and really know how many people we have inside of our events for the day that are vaccinated and cleared to enter. So, real quick demo, just wanted to not spend too much time going through things, but it's just a very simple way for our residents to request a vaccination record. Get that really quickly into the same app that they're familiar with, not have to download or register with anything else. And then for businesses to quickly and easily be able to scan and verify those things. And, one thing to note is we are working with multiple ways for our business app to get that information. So for example, we have, the Excelsior Pass from New York, for example, right here. We are able to scan and verify multiple, different vendors and whatnot, so that users of our system are able to handle a large volume of different characters coming in from different areas. And that is really the demo. Any questions there?
Well, that's just great. Thanks so much, Nick and Norm, for sharing that. I know that I'm seeing there are a number of questions coming through on the Q&A feature. So certainly if you have a minute and other panelists to respond to some of those questions coming through there and through the chat feature, Nick and Norm. But again, a great example of a technology vendor who was working left of jab with the state of California and Orange County, now working right of jab with those same patients or individuals in society, as well as now it sounds like working with a lot of the destinations and verifiers. So thanks again so much, Norm and team, for leaning into that. Now we'll transition to another verifier. Many of you who are travelers out there, as I am, have probably heard of and recognize the name Clear. They're an industry leader in biometrics and identity proofing and management for many of the shorter lines that we all like to get into when we travel, either domestically or internationally. Clear is a member of VCI and a great partner leading the way in this space. And so I'll pass the ball over to Addison and your team to give us a little bit of a demo on where Clear is with smart health cards. Addison?
Great. Thanks, Brian. Get set up here. All right. So maybe just to start off with, thanks for that intro, Brian. I wanted to start off with saying, what is Clear? Most people do know us from the airports, but really what we're focused on is a trusted and verified identity, one that the user controls as opposed to a giant tech company. A lot of the use cases that we're supporting are really about frictionless journeys. So it's about getting through the airport faster and quicker in a secure way, working with the TSA, but it also means things like age validations for buying a beer, building access to make sure that the right people are entering, payments, and then a lot of expansion in the healthcare space with the Healthpass product. As far as reach goes, we are operating over 45 airports, a lot of sport venues as well. And then Healthpass, which is our product for tracking COVID lab tests and vaccines. We have partnerships with the NBA, the NHL. We did a pilot at the Super Bowl. We've done music festivals with over 20,000 attendees, and we're at the latest UFC event with 9,000. In New York specifically, our home, we've worked with the Danny Meyer Group and a lot of their restaurants, the 9/11 Museum and Memorial, and NBC Universal. So pretty expansive scope. And all of them looking to bring back both workers, employees, and attendees and customers as quickly as they can in a safe and secured way. So our foray into this space is a product called Healthpass, which is merging your secure identity with your health insights. So there's a little video here. I'll send this presentation out so people can read through it, but I thought it'd be helpful just to give kind of a general overview of what a day in the life looks like for a Healthpass user. They do a one-time enrollment that is totally free, an important distinction from our airport product. Anyone can use Healthpass for free, and we have partnerships with the venues for tracking that. They link either a vaccine record or a lab result, a negative COVID test. Then they complete a survey. If the venue wants it, we also offer hardware where they can do automatic temperature checks, and then they'll receive their final Healthpass results, a green, red, or digital vaccine card is that blue one there at the bottom. So this group obviously cares most about this section right here. And we are very focused on how we can reach every user possible. So we've gone about it in 4 different avenues. The first one is direct connection to big healthcare providers and pharmacies like Walmart, which is going to be launching early next month. Secondarily, going to state registries where available, where consumers are allowed to have access. Third is allowing them to upload the CDC card, which we do a little bit of image recognition to validate that it's real. But it is a second tier, obviously, because those are much harder to verify as they are handwritten. And so because of that, we're really leaning hard into the smart health cards in this group. So that's that 4th option over there, because we believe that this is the best way to get a secure, trusted vaccine into our health system, into Clear, and so that you can use it for travel, use it for sporting events, to make sure that it is trusted for this specific user. Some of the tech considerations that we have heard back from the market and things that I would love for this group to be thinking about is how do we do customer support? Because there's going to be a lot of people looking to use these QR codes everywhere, and we want to make sure that they feel like they have the right place to go to. Fuzzy matching is something that we'll need to address as a group. William and Bill are the same person, but it's hard to verify that with just the QR code. And then verification, we'll need to make sure that there is a centrally hosted verifying website. We don't want everyone building unique implementations to this. We want to be able to get people on the market verified as fast as possible. So I'm hoping that this group can kind of unify towards a single platform that we all adhere to. It'll help us all move faster, and it'll make sure that, most importantly, patient data is protected. So I know that was a quick run through here, and wanted to make sure that we had time for Q&A. Also, of course, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I also have Marissa Bass on the line, who's leads our healthcare business. I don't know if you wanted to chime in and add a little extra there, Marissa.
It was a good presentation, Addison. Thank you. But happy to answer questions for those either here or as a follow-up. I'm sure they can be routed through Brian and the team. But we're very appreciative to be part of the VCI, and we're hopeful to continue to work with all of you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Marissa. And I think as we sort of move on, there will likely be a lot of questions. Actually, here's one coming in from Ray, and I'll just go ahead and read it here. Clear is expensive when used for travel. What is the cost to citizens for using Clear for vaccine verification?
So as Addison mentioned, the Healthpass product is free for a Clear user. Actually, for an individual, everything outside of our airport security experience is free to the consumer.
That's great. That's wonderful, Marissa. And then here, another question from Dave. Are Clear operate, and I don't know what this acronym is, so I'll just spell it out, EMEA.
Thank you, Dave. Not yet. This is actually work that we are very much in progress, but not yet. Stay tuned.
Well, great. Well, I think we'll go ahead and we'll certainly continue to have questions here that come through, but wanted to just go ahead and move on. So Marissa and Addison, thank you so much for all that you're doing there with Clear. And I think hopefully the community, you've gotten an appreciation from the EHR vendors, just to kick things off. Groups like Epic and Cerner and Athena Health and others are leaning into this space, really leading the way, creating the framework and implementations so that citizens across the nation, across the world, frankly, can have access to these credentials, be you a health system that's on a Cerner platform or an Epic platform or another EHR vendor's platform. And then you also heard a great example of a state partnering with a technology vendor to issue these kinds of credentials from an IIS or a state registry partnership. These are just some of the examples that we have the pleasure here on the steering group of learning about when you reach out to and hear more and to want to learn more about how to get involved. So as we transition to the closing remarks and I pass the ball to John, just want to thank everyone who's presented and certainly recognize that there are many of you that haven't had the chance to present that may be interested in presenting. Please feel free to reach out to me or any of your other colleagues that you may know on the VCI steering group. We'd love to have you on to showcase real implementations of VCI, either as an issuer, as a verifier, or as a holder or a destination. So with that, I believe we have Dr. John Halamka from the Mayo Clinic on. John, would you like to close us up and wrap us up? And I'll go ahead and represent my screen here while you go ahead and activate your microphone and camera. So John, over to you, sir. And John, are you on? Is your microphone activated? We might not have
I don't
John.
see John on, unfortunately.
All right, well, go ahead. I'll go ahead and close us up. It looks like John can't activate with the link. So I'll apologize, Dr. Halamka, on behalf of our technical team that we weren't able to get you over. Or maybe if one of the, Tom, if you wouldn't mind seeing if he's in the participant list to see if you can bring him over. Is that possible?
Well, what he knows, with the miracle of technology, I'm now on. Yay! Thanks so much, everybody. So, hey, you just heard some remarkable presentations that shows this community continues to really rapidly move forward and implement VCI. And it's very clear that this smart health card standard is going to go live across this country in many venues over coming weeks. And as a person who's worked for 40 years in standards implementation, what you recognize is your measure of success is adoption. And we're now seeing that, and that's so exciting. But now there's going to need to be support as the standard is promulgated. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we're going to need to make sure that as we deploy the standard, that it's used appropriately and its use is validated and verified. And there'll be whitelists of those folks who are using it appropriately. And we're going to need to figure out, of course, who are the appropriate issuers. And we're going to need to keep that list and maintain that list. So all these supporting infrastructures around the standard itself will need to be deployed. And so I think as I look, Brian, to these next couple of weeks, it will be, let's get everybody live. Let's get the standard promulgated and adopted. Let's make sure that we are then maintaining an appropriate list of those who are the credentialed issuers. And we have that technical confirmation of specifications. And we have the place to publish their names, their logos, and their public key infrastructure in a public registry. As we promulgate this standard, I mean, we always know that one size is not going to fit all. As especially we look across the world, there's going to be activities that happen in India with the DIVOC standard. There's going to be work of the World Health Organization. And, you know, the question you always ask, and I, in my standards harmonization work with Robert Waugh, always use this: what's the fewest number of variations that will get the job done? I don't have the illusion that we're going to get to just one and that everybody across the world will use VCI. But God, let's hope we don't have a dozen. And so let's imagine that not only over these next couple of weeks as we do supportive infrastructure and processes, that will continue the dialogue with the World Health Organization and the EU and with DIVOC and others to try to constrain the number of variations. Robert was quite kind when he said, John, every time you say or, what you really mean is and. Because what it means is that poor stadium or that poor, you know, theater or that travel agency will have to do WHO and EU and DIVOC and VCI. And ultimately supporting all this variation becomes completely unsustainable. So, hey, great work so far. Look to seeing it moved into reality, continuing to provide supportive services and converging on fewer variations over time. So Brian, turn it back to you.
Well, that's it. And so we'll go ahead and wrap up with that. So thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, all the presenters. Thank you, JP, Reese, and Max, and all my fellow VCI steering group members for all the leadership that you're providing for all of us. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.